So the entire system of Shabda Praman follows a very systematic, a strategic approach, just like is just like how education is imparted. The Vedic process of learning is very systematic, just like modern day knowledge. Like you can understand, it's like a spiritual university. So what we are calling as, so then we see that okay, in education there are these university boards, just like in India at at a secondary, higher secondary level, there are these boards of education, which is just like ICSE, CBSE, state boards, authorized boards. Now, if you want to open an institute, you need to have affiliation from one of these boards. So, this board, ICSE, CBSE, in Sanskrit, in Vedic terminologies, it is called as Sampradaya or Parampara. So, therefore, the Vedic Shastras explain that if you want to know about God, then there are 4 bona fide institutions or boards. They are called as 4 sampradayas. You need to take admission into one of these boards, or you need to take admission into a college which is affiliated from one of these boards. These are 4 boards or 4 sampradayas, and you can hear these terminologies. These 4 sampradayas or boards are being named on the names of the 4 founding principles. So one of them is Brahma Sampradaya, is founding principle Brahmaji. Sri Sampradaya, the founding principle Mother Lakshmi. Rudra Sampradaya, the founding principle Lord Shiva. The Kumar Sampradaya, the founding principle the sons, the 4 sons, celebrated sons of Brahmaji, the 4 Kumaras. So so we can see these 4 sampradayas. We can see these 4 sampradayas. That's like much in South India we can see there are the prominence of Sri Sampradaya, like that. In Gujarat there is I believe Kumar Sampradaya, and then you can see in Vrindavan there is Rudra Sampradaya. And Brahma Sampradaya you can see in many patches of South India, Mid India, just like Udupi, there is Brahma Sampradaya, like that. So there are some seats like that, and so these are universities actually, where you can get authorized knowledge. The 4 universities, based on their founding principles. And now, so here the point is that a student who takes admission, just like in MBBS, there is an established panel of doctors who train a student, who teach him, who test him, who correct him, rectify him, again test him, and when they feel that he has learnt enough, he has matured enough, now he is not making mistakes, now he has assimilated the concepts in his heart, in his life, he can give prescription, he can do surgeries, then they impart upon him the degree MBBS or MD or DM, each of them, any of them, progression. So there is this whole process of training. So here there are these panel of authorized doctors, and they train. This training happens over a period of a decade. By the time you pass out DM, it's more than a decade. Then you become a super specialist. Then you can start prescribing. You can say, yes, I am a gastroenterologist, or I'm an oncologist, or nephrologist, and so on. Similarly, these 4 universities constitute of, at any given point of time there is an established panel of bona fide learned teachers. In Sanskrit terminology they are called as acharyas or guru. So then they train a person who takes admission, test him, explain to him, rectify him, mold him, and this happens over a period of decades. And when they are convinced about that this person has learned enough, then they can confer upon him they can confer upon him the so the power to prescribe and help others, because he has gained proper knowledge, he has learned over a period of years. So that's how a spiritual university also works. This is Shabda. So in this Yeah, so the authorized books are the Vedic texts like Bhagavad Gita, and the professors are like one who has heard from his guru and practiced in his life. Then he has heard from his guru, practiced in his life. So what is he repeating? He is simply repeating what he has learned from his guru. I still see myself that somebody anytime asks me to give a to explain say a concept of an algorithm design or to talk about machine learning, I very much refer to the slides which I learned at my time. I just take them and pick them up, and some of the things which were installed at that time, just share them. So that's how it works out. That even it works out materially. Why can't it work spiritually? So a person who has heard from his guru and experienced in his life by implementing it, he can share it, and in this way he can train further students. In this way, although the amazing beauty of this is that although the person per se, the teacher or the professor, he himself may not be completely 100% pure and completely 100% spiritualized. He may be, yes, in progressive stages of his journey to spiritual awakening. He may not be 100% accomplished, but what he is speaking is perfect and complete because he is just following what he had heard. And if we connect to him, then we get to benefit. Just like a nursery class student can as well learn from a 4th class student, and a 4th class student can learn from an 8th class student, and he can learn from an engineering first year, and an engineering first year or second year or third year can learn from an MTech, and an MTech can learn from a PhD, and a PhD will learn from a professor, right? And all in due course of time can become professors. That's the whole point. That's the whole beauty. So therefore the Vedic Shastras explain that the Supreme Lord in Bhagavatam, this is how Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the essence of the Vedas, in Srimad Bhagavatam explains that how the Lord gave this divine knowledge. This divine knowledge was given in the heart of Brahma Ji. Tene Brahma Hridaye Adi Kavaye. So Brahma Ji is one of the founding principles. He was given knowledge by God, the Lord himself. And then this Vedic wisdom came down in disciplic succession from a series of spiritual professors down, and therefore that's how it's coming to us. Yeah. So now it says that this body of knowledge, this is what is called as parampara system. This is what is called as parampara system. And now you see the point. Now we may say that okay, this is amazing. Why? Because a person who is having 4 defects can actually get to assimilate by practice and training. He can, over a period of decades, he can get to assimilate knowledge which is divine, which is beyond the 4 defects. Amazing. This is amazing. So this is how this knowledge was being passed from professor to student, from guru to shishya, in the line of this is what is called as disciplic succession. 5,000 years before, Vyasadeva, who was a literary incarnation of God, he recorded this very knowledge which was being passed down as Veda. So what we call as Veda was previously being just passed from professor to students. There was no written catalog of it. Why? Because people had good good memory chips, inherent biological memory chips installed in their heads. They had more memory power, so they did not need gigabyte, terabyte memories like that. But because this went, the memory has gone down as the age is progressing, therefore people need more gigabyte or terabyte of storage. And because of that, Vyasadeva understood this, and therefore he wrote this down in the form of writings or text for the benefit of the people of Kali Yuga. And that is called as the written manuscript of Vedas. So the written body of Vedas actually. So that is what Vyasadeva wrote down 5,000 years before. And now this gives us an additional foolproofing. Why? Because any particular spiritual teacher comes and he says anything. He says I am a spiritual teacher. No. So first of all we have to ask, okay, which university you are qualified from, which board, which sampradaya. Like that. Who was your guru? How did you learn it? Like that. So now, so we get an additional foolproofing. Why? Because now we can test any person because we have the Vedic texts also available. We can read them, and we have the chain of disciplic succession. So we can read the past gurus or acharyas, like that, and we can check and map what this person is saying. In this way, there is a very powerful test and balance system which we can have ourselves, like that. One may ask a question that okay, a person may have learned good and proper knowledge, but because of the drives of selfishness, he may corrupt, amalgamate, adulterate, this learning. How can we safeguard ourselves from that? And yes, we do see that actually people they cheat in the name of spirituality, like that. How do we test that? So to understand that, we can so that works actually, that then we need to see the whole genuine parampara per se, that there is no single one authority of spirituality in the world, like that. There are these genuine bona fide devotees all over, and the point to note is that in fact the parampara, what it does is that it maintains the purity of the shastras, it maintains the purity of the message, because any person deviates, then immediately is ostracized. This is how modern day patenting companies also work. Modern day research is recorded. Anybody says that I have invented this, immediately they'll check it. If it is matching with somebody else, they will immediately reject it or catch that person, for plagiarism, for misuse, or cheating, like that. So in a similar way, the parampara also works actually. One time, one gentleman came to Srila Prabhupada and he said, Swamiji, you have written a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. I'm very sorry to say, but your commentary very much looks like the commentary of Ramanujacharya. Hey? What did you do? What is your glory in that? I mean, what is your contribution in that? And Srila Prabhupada smiled, he became very happy. Prabhupada took it as a compliment. Prabhupada said, yeah, that is my glory. That's my glory. That what I have presented is very much like Ramanujacharya. That means that I am presenting the message as it is. There is no contamination in it. There is no adulteration. So that's my glory. And Prabhupada will say, that's my glory. That I am just presenting, as it is. There is no personal, manipulation in the whole message actually. So this is how parampara system works. So yes, this is the big tree, the banyan tree of Vedic knowledge, like that. So we can see it's amazing, mind-boggling banyan tree of Vedic knowledge. There are the Shrutis, which were Shrutis directly, which is spoken by God. Smritis are elaborations. Shruti is said to be the mother. Smriti is like the elder sister who gives purport and explanation to what the mother is saying. Smriti is the explanation, further explanation of the concepts of Shruti by the sages. Therefore, there is this big, powerful banyan tree of the ocean of knowledge, which is given to us. Now, one may say that, okay, so what if you're trying to say that Shabda is very important, but all what we have been accustomed to live with is Pratyaksha and Anuman. So is Pratyaksha and Anuman completely bogus, completely useless? I mean, that means all what we have been doing or what people are tuned to is all bogus. So that's a question which people may say. Another variation of the same question is that, okay, so you are saying that, okay, whatever is written in these Vedas and whatever the spiritual authorities are saying, okay, you can testify, he's saying same thing as what is written and all that, parampara and everything, but we just have to accept it blindly, right? That's what you're saying. So one may question like that. And now, so to answer this question, let's go back to the experiment of our innovative, young researchers who happen to be blind. So we go back to their experiment of the 6 blind men trying to figure out what is like an elephant. So the 6 blind men were using Pratyaksha and Anuman. Now you can understand. So now that blindness was the inherent limitation in Pratyaksha, and then they modeled, they did analysis over that inherent limitation or that Pratyaksha, that was Anuman, and therefore they came up with different results. So if you try to understand that the Pratyaksha was not wrong. I mean, if the belly of the elephant looks like a wall, it's not wrong. Yeah, I mean, the trunk of the elephant, I mean, it looks like the tail looks like a rope, is it not? No, the trunk looks like a tree branch or things like that. It's not wrong, it's fine. The only point to note is that it is incomplete. Pratyaksha and Anuman give us incomplete देन यू में से ठीक है, फिर दुनिया में परेशानी क्यों है? परेशानी इसलिए है क्योंकि when the incomplete is considered to be complete, it makes things incorrect. That's where the mistake lies. The incomplete is not a problem. The problem is to take the incomplete to be complete, and that was the problem with Dr. Frog. His well was not problematic. State of the art laboratories, all they could do, they were giving results, but that was limited. It was an incomplete picture. But his adamant arrogance was that he said that the incomplete is all that is there, nothing else can be there, and that makes things incorrect. That's what would limit mankind in his quest to evolve. So therefore, what is the solution? The solution is Shabda is not blind. Okay, yes, we said okay, Shabda has to be accepted. But one may say that okay, blindly? No, Shabda is not blind. So now let us go back to this experiment of the 6 blind men. The 6 blind men should have first attended a theory class by a person who has eyes, who has seen how an elephant look like. And then if they would have heard an explanation and made notes, and he would have said, okay, elephant is a huge structure. Elephant has many parts in his anatomy, morphology. And one part is the belly is huge, like that. And the tusks are very sharp, The ears are like a wedge, like that. So then after that, if they would have gone to the experimental lab, then the person who is feeling a wall type structure will say, hey, this is a wall type structure, this is the belly of the elephant, I heard it, yeah, I am finding it, belly, like that. And then they would have moved around, and they would have found, somebody would have found a branch, a tree trunk type of structure, and say, hey, this is the leg of the elephant. Why? Because now why they are able to conclude everything fits in the right place, the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle are fitting in the right place. Why? Because they heard it from a person before doing the experiment. Similarly, Shabda should come first and should give us the direction matrix of life, and then one can use his Pratyaksha and Anuman to testify how this is correct. Then all the bits and pieces of the jigsaw puzzle will fall in place, and we will have a beautiful painting of life. That's the point to note. That is the point to note. So therefore, the whole thing is like a scientific experiment. Life should not be undertaken on a blind note, on a mad note, on a hit and trial note. Let's be more intelligent towards undertaking of life. We have limited time. Our lifespan is limited. So why waste it just groping in the dark, hitting and trying out that maybe by chance we'll land up in the right place? No, we can make our moves intelligent and precise, confident and sure, and in that way we can drive to meaning and purpose. But we need to be scientific. Just like, suppose there is an electronics experiment which has to be done on a breadboard, and there are many chips actually, there are many connections, certain pin number of a particular chip A has to be connected to another pin number of a chip B, and so on and so forth. And there, suppose in that whole experiment there are 80 connections which are supposed to be done. So if one is doing connections meticulously one after another, but he gets tired after 50 connections, the person says, okay, I am tired, now open the electricity, I will see what is the graph which is coming on the oscilloscope bus. What will happen? At best nothing will happen, but some sparks, explosions may happen because you have done incomplete circuitry, is it not? And damaging may happen, is it not? So science means what? 80 connections means 80 connections, not 79. And if one does that, and then one opens on electricity, you will get the perfect graph, 100% marks in your experimental results, is it not? Similarly, what are the connections to be done in life? The Vedic manuscripts, the Vedic scriptures are talking about that these are the connections which you have to make in life. And if we adopt the scientific attitude as a broad-minded attitude, a scientific attitude is a diligent attitude, yes, let me apply this and see. Here is this body of Shabda which is giving me directions. Let me apply this and see, make all the connections, and then if you push, then we put the the switch on command, if you put it implementation, the switch of implementation in our lives, we can see a perfect result that how life becomes so meaningful and sublime. Why deprive us of this great opportunity which lays in front of us? Let us dive into it, test it out, and enjoy the meaning and the colors which life can bring about. Thank you.